But let's scroll down to fighter. Now I skipped spells and stuff because they apparently are going to come up more in the other stuff. And now that I've got a better grasp on everything from these feats to how the weapon masteries work, this should be a lot smoother. And I'm looking forward to it. So fighters. Traditionally, fighters are... The human fighter is looked down upon by some, but let's face it, popular things are sometimes popular for a reason. They're a fine class, and they always have been. I've heard some say that, especially once you get up to higher levels, they really start to fall off compared to spellcasters. I don't know. I'm in a game with a fighter at the moment, and they're still kicking butt. So I don't know. But they're also a min-maxer like myself. Nothing wrong with that. I build both for RP and for doing as much damage as physically possible. So if you're like me, well, yeah, fighters, they are great, especially for things like action surge, which, yeah, I'm glad to see that is kept up. I don't see, this is just the description of what the class is. And, yeah, I'm sure some of this has changed from the player's handbook, but I don't want to pull out the player's handbook and compare exact writing. So let's get into fighter updates. Here are the main updates of this class, inspired by the player handbook survey 2021. Interesting. It always amazes me when well, I don't know how much quicker they can actually put out some of this stuff, right? Because you do a survey in 2021 that it takes time to playtest all this stuff internally. So I'm not too surprised it's been that long. Persuasion has been added to class list of skills. Yeah, okay. Second wind can now be used more than once between long rests requiring a short rest. I agree to that. That is perfectly fine. Cool. Weapon mastery gives you the new way to use weapons. So does that mean basically all that is changed is they've added mastery? Oh, no, they got more stuff down here. Okay, good. Action surge is now limited to a certain or two certain fighter-themed actions. I'll have to see what they changed. That doesn't sound too bad. Weapon Expert is a new 7th level feature. Okay, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. Indomitable now gives a bonus to the reroll equal to your fighter level. So they buffed that. That's probably fine. Weapon Adept, willing to guess this has something to do with the weapon mastery stuff. I think I might have read ahead on that actually, but it's been a few days since I did my previous recording, so I could be wrong. 3 extra attacks have been moved from 20th to 18th. This is again leading me to believe they are moving capstone stuff a couple levels earlier, making higher level play happen sooner. As long as they release some books and modules, and in particular monsters, and they are doing the revised guide for CR. I was going to say CR ratings, but the R in CR stands for ratings, or rating. But as they revamp the CR system, which is challenge rating if you're new to this stuff, higher level play is rumored to be getting a lot more support. 5th edition it's got some really cool stuff you can do at higher levels, but as a DM, higher levels kind of suck to deal with. Yeah. So as long as they add more stuff to allow for higher level content to be a bit more usable, I think that's great. As well as this does 2 things, moving 20th level stuff to 18th. It makes some of the higher end bonuses and cool stuff happen sooner, which is great for the players. And it also opens the door to almost everybody can multi-class, which is sweet. This epic boon at 20th level, I'm curious to see how it actually gets implemented. And I talked a bit about this last time. I think you can still get it even if you're multi-classed, but it happens later, right? Because the design, I think, is going to be you hit 20th level, you get whatever you would get from either if you have stayed to one class, you get the epic boon. If you multi-classed, then you get the epic boon once you would get to the experience equivalent of 20th level in that class, but you don't get to be like level 22 or something like that, or like you lose out technically on like this 19th level feat and stuff. I think I don't know. It's a little vague in some respects. Yeah, and the epic boons do let you increase your ability scores, which is actually really cool. Again, they're adding stuff to kind of like, I think I described it previously as if Paragon levels in Diablo 3, where once you hit max level, you can still upgrade things. So I'm assuming epic boons, to an extent, will be available to everybody, regardless of multi-classed or not. But if you multi-class, they may pop up a little later. That's kind of my assumption. But yeah, like I said, I like this change of moving 20th level stuff to 18. And we're only 2 classes in, so maybe the third class does something different and messes with my whole theory. But that is where I'm kind of looking. Anyway, so that changes, and then, yeah, they've got the epic boon there. So, creating a fighter, hit dice, I believe this is all the same. Starting gear, I think, is the same. I don't really want to bother looking too much into that unless they note it. Multi-classing, and again, I mentioned this in the Barbarian, and I'm going to talk about the same things multiple times, because some people might not watch each video. They might just watch the individual videos for classes. I love this idea. Have a multi-class section in each class area so that there's not just some table somewhere in the book that just mentions multi-classing. Especially, it seems to me like they are making multi-classing more built in from the get-go, more accessible, less, you really, like, yeah, as a DM, I'm still going to have final say if multi-classing is allowed in my games, and it should always be that way, because generally speaking, multi-classing makes for more powerful PCs and can mess with things. At least that's been the 5th ed thing so far. If they've balanced things in a way that evens out a little bit better, this could be just, yeah, multi-classing is just always a thing, right? I know in Pathfinder and like 3.5 and some earlier editions, you just multi-class. That's just kind of how it is done, and usually you plan ahead to make sure that it synergizes well with what you're doing. So having it just, hey, here's how you multi-class into this. Here's what you need, and then here's what you get from it. Sweet. Again, I much prefer this than having a chart. You can have a chart somewhere else if you want. I know ink and paper cost money, so maybe it's a pipe dream to have this if it ends up taking up less space, but I just really like this layout. I think this is perfect. And it, yeah, especially with some of the changes they've made. I mentioned last time, Warlock sounds like it's had a complete revamp, and that was the one that I know for casters really mess with things. And I've only seen the multi-classing for an individual, I've only seen the multi-classing for martial classes so far, so maybe there's something wonky that I'm not thinking of. All right. So action surge. What else was there? Some weapon mastery at first level. I already knew that. Second wind, short rest, K. They added persuasion, K. Fighting style defense feat, or gain another fighting style feat of your choice. I'd be interested then, are just all the fighting styles available as feats, but you can only maybe have one of them? I haven't checked the UA. That was the new feats for what is no longer called 1D&D. So, I don't know. But it seems like they're changing, similar to how for casters, from what I've heard, they've changed a lot of casting or caster class abilities to spells, which I'm kind of fine with, though I haven't read through those yet. So it sounds like they're moving a lot of stuff to feats, right? Something that threw me off on the Barbarian one, and then I found out, and if you watch the video, you see later on, that there is a ability score increase feat that you can take instead of feat. And that strikes me as feats are no longer going to be a DM discretion thing. And if they are, it's going to be, for better or worse, there's going to be a little bit more pushback if you're a DM saying, no, we're not playing with feats. But again, just like multi-classing being a bit more, or that's not the multi-class thing, multi-classing being a bit more standardized, if the game is balanced a bit better, where playing with multi-classing doesn't make people too powerful, playing with feats doesn't make for too big of a power differential, I think it's fine. Part of the problem I ran into with feats is from a power creep perspective. Some of the new feats in Tosh's Cauldron of Everything, there's just no point in not taking them. It's just always going to be better to get the +1 to a stat plus the badass stuff that they were giving you. So your mileage may vary, but I have a strong suspicion these are going to be a lot more integral, similar to in like Pathfinder and in some older editions to my knowledge, like 3.0, 3.5, that kind of stuff. I haven't really delved into earlier stuff than that, but feats were in Pathfinder. My rogue needs feats. It's built into the class that you need them, and then they have them separate from ability score increases. That's the way I wish they would have done these, to be perfectly honest, is just have the feats and the ability score increases still happen. I don't know if that breaks the balance, though, especially because they do want to have these new options, these new things to be compatible if you're playing a game with somebody building a character from the old books. That might overdo it. Because they did make feats in 5th ed compared to like Pathfinder feats. The synergies and stuff start to add up over time, but a lot of them are minor things that add up to something bigger. So because you're turning down in ability score increase oftentimes, or half of an ability score increase to take a feat, it's they have to be more powerful. So especially if they have a good revamp, if feats are awesome, I'm all for it. And I have a strong suspicion. Like I say, I haven't read through everything that is out yet for this version, that the ability score increase feat is probably not available at level 1. It's probably specifically, we'll say, level 4 or higher, similar to some of the other ones that I've seen, so that you can't go variant human and take it at level 1 and be ridiculous. I also do like, generally, especially if you go standard array or point buy, oftentimes you end up with that 17 on strength or something like that. So if the feats add 1 strength and then something cool, they're always a viable option. Anyway, I've been talking about those for a while. Let's carry on, because we haven't got to any of the actual changes yet. Action surge. This is something they changed because they changed second wind to be able to be used on a. Wait, it said they changed it to be used on a. Without require. Oh, I misunderstood. All right, second wind. Bonus action, you regain hit points. Okay. Feature twice, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. When you reach a certain fighter level, you gain more uses of this feature. Okay, this is a bigger deal than I thought. For the better, I would say. It also does strike me as I'll have to see on some of these other things. I wonder if they're moving away from short rest being as integral for some classes as they were, or if maybe every class short rests are going to be really important. But that was always an interesting kind of. Didn't necessarily always create party tension, but just always an interesting choice that some classes benefited much more from short rests than others. So you'd run into frequent times where, guys, I really need a short rest, and nobody else does because they don't get anything from it other than hit points. And if you're the tank and you need the hit points, that rest becomes pretty mandatory. But yeah, I like this. I like this idea that you just get more. Yeah, I don't know how I didn't notice that. It's written right there. Because I think in the old days, 5e fighter. It's been so long since I've looked at a standard fighter. Yeah, they don't have a chart for that. Second wind, short or long rest. I think this is better. I'd have to actually play test this to know for sure. But generally speaking, I don't know too many parties that are getting more than one short rest a day. So starting with 2 of these is actually perfectly fine. And then it going up is going to make it far more useful. Because, 10th level, second wind actually becomes super useful now because, you're probably only doing one short rest a day, but you can use the thing 4 times. The fighters really are going to like that, and the clerics are as well, to be honest. That's a good change that I don't think overpowers anything or messes with anything too bad. So I'm good with that. That's sweet. Now, weapon mastery, I've talked about this at length. You're welcome to watch my thing talking about the specific weapon masteries. Thankfully, they work better than I thought they did because you can change what your masteries are on a long rest, which I think is good. I was worried when I saw the masteries that it would be set it and forget it. You're stuck with those weapons now. Thankfully, fighters also start with more, which is sweet. Because, you can have, a mastery in your longbow, your great sword, and then something else, right? So you can pick 3 and then add more and more and more. And then, once you get up to 9th level here, being able to have 5 of them. That's quite a bit. So I think you'll be fine. And it is kind of nice mastery-wise, not only because you get to pick and choose what it is, so after a long rest, you can swap things out. If you're like, you know what, I'm just really not liking this particular weapon set, and I'm going to switch it up, sweet. But also, if you find a cool weapon, that was my big fear, is okay, I didn't pick greatsword, and we found one of the coolest greatswords in the game, and now I have to give up the fact that I either give the sword to somebody else or won't be able to use it to its full effectiveness, I guess would be probably a better term than efficiency. Yeah, so I like how they've incorporated these masteries. I don't want to go through them all for this, but I also like the idea that the fighter is going to have more of them. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Fighter subclass, and as with the other ones, you think have to use for the playtest the champion, just because it won't be necessarily compatible with the previous book subclasses. Feat. Yeah, ability score improvement. Feat. Extra attack. Feat. Wait. They get one at 4th and 5th? Am I seeing that right? Holy crap. Yeah, so I remember fighters getting extra feats and ability score increases compared to other classes. I wasn't expecting it back-to-back levels. Now they both say, they both say ability score improvement or another feat of your choice. This is really telling me that feats are going to be probably weaker than they were, but more integral to the class. You're going to kind of want to know what feats you want early on, or like as you started playing and see your play style, you're going to be probably looking at that a lot. And as a fighter, I think it's sweet being able to get that many. I don't think they got that many. What did they get before? So they had ability score at 4, 6, 8, 12. So they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 potential. And now, where's our chart here? Is it the same but just all earlier? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I think unless I missed one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so there's still 7. There's still the same amount, but they front loaded it a bit more. Because you get 4th and then 5th versus 4th and 6th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so it's still 7. But a lot more front loaded. Yeah. 1, 2. It is interesting to me that they put it there and then they put it there. I wonder if it's just an alphabetical order thing or something. Having feet happen second there and then first there. But anyway, so so same amount of feats, they just happen a lot earlier. That's fun. I like that. Okay. So still 7. It's still the same amount. But they just changed when they happen. That's kind of cool. I wonder if that was listed in there and I just didn't see it. Anyway, cool. All right. Well, they get that stuff a lot earlier than I'm used to. Weapon expert. Yeah, so this is an interesting thing, and I think this was what I read a little bit last time on. This is cool because you can change the mastery on a weapon as long as it meets the protagonist prerequisites which is sweet. I think they even mention here, choose the kind of weapon was qualified for new property. For example, you can replace the longsword's flex with push. So as long as it meets the criteria, you can replace things, which is really cool, especially like not just, I want my longsword to be able to do this cool thing. That's fine. But again, as I mentioned before, if you find a really cool magic item and it has flex, but you'd rather it have push or something like that, being able to swap it out without worry, I think that's handy. Yeah, really good. I like that. The more I think about this, at first I was like, well, why would you care about swapping it? Like, why wouldn't you just take darts instead of daggers? Although I did have it pop into my head as well that you at least in theory, I think a DM probably would let you break the rule on a dagger. You can attack with it. It's not just thrown. Though I think. Yeah, because this is considered ranged, so and it's not light. That's the other thing I missed between dagger and dart when I was talking about them earlier. But you can switch out because both of them can have these. And I think I mentioned this before. If Wizards of the Coast, I'm actually going to send them an email regarding this because they do want feedback. They need a better indication of prerequisites than just where the commas happen to be, because that is something I ran into looking at those boons, because that messed with me a bit of like, wait a second, you don't actually have to be 20th level, and you do. It's just because the comma's in the quote-unquote right spot. Anyway, back to fighter here. Third level fighter subclass, feat. Saving throw, you can re-roll it with a bonus equal to your fighter level. So I think before Indomitable times 1 times 2, and then I think 3, there we go. I think before it was just you add it was just re-roll a saving throw. Cool. Now you add more. I'm cool with that. And especially if they found that it just wasn't as useful as they thought it would be on paper. I'm good with that. All right. I'm going to have a jujube. And I'm going to have some of this. They go together better than you think they would. All right. Everything else pretty standard. 2 extra attacks. This is what we're here for, right? That and action surge. Oh, I skipped over action surge. Let's kind of backtrack here. On the turn, you can make one additional action chosen from the following options: attack, dash, disengage, or dodge. Yeah, I guess I see. This is an okay change. This is a multi-class thing, I suspect, above anything else. It is so that you can't be a Hexblade Warlock or something like that and use action surge so you can cast your Eldritch Blast twice in one turn kind of thing. Though, depending when we get to Sorcerer, if they've got Twin Spell and stuff like that, that works well. But yeah, this I think is just here for keeping the action surge stuff working with martial stuff rather than working with spellcasting stuff. So I think that's why that's there. Because in my head, I was like, well, wouldn't you use it to do one of these. Like, those are the main actions you'd want to use an action surge for. And then I remember multiclassing. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think, yeah, I think I like that. It also means if you are a caster, or say a half caster, right? Like, you're a paladin and you take 2 levels in fighter, so you can get action surge and a few of the other bonuses and stuff from being a fighter, etc. It's not just about action surge, but if you cast a spell, then you can use action surge to add an attack. If you've attacked first, you can't use action surge to add a spell. So you have to kind of make sure you've ordered things correctly. So there's some interesting use cases. I think largely this is just, like I said, a multi-class limitation. It's strengthening my belief that they are wanting multi-classing to just be more inherent and built into the game, but less powerful than it was before. That's the vibe I'm getting. Is it used to be the case of, if you allowed multi-classing as a DM, that you just have to expect there's going to be then a few characters at your table that might be quite a bit more powerful than the others because of some interesting synergies and stuff, which I enjoy those synergies, especially as a theory crafter, power gamer, or whatever you want to call me. But I do like the idea that it's really encouraged to do a 2-level dip into any class you kind of want throughout the game, but it also doesn't break it for people who decide not to. So I think this is, some balancing stuff. I think we're going to see a bit more stuff like that as it goes. Anyway, I think almost everything's kind of the same, except for this weapon adept. You're a master of weapons. When you use your weapon expert feature on a kind of weapon, you can give... Ooh. That's sweet. Okay. I got actual chills for a second there. I like this. This, again, because something I really like about these mastery things is it will make melee classes and martial classes just more interesting, because you can do more stuff than I swing my sword, do I hit or not, right? There's other things on top of it. And that is cool, but it does, like, everybody having access to that might make fighters less interesting. This changes that. This means, assuming other martial classes don't get this, this really opens some really interesting synergies, right? You take the thing that lets you potentially trip enemies, and you then combine that with something like has knockback, so then you have like 2 different crowd control things going on. Sorry, now I have to look back up at these, because the weapon has to be able to take both. So yeah, like heavy, reach, or versatile for topple. Because you knock them the hell over, and then you can prerequisites on slow, none. So you can just always have slow no matter what weapon you have. You can have prerequisites no. So you can have like sap on your great sword, so you get advantage on your next, they get disadvantage, and then what was the one? Yeah, because this one here, Vex, was something I found really interesting in that you get advantage on your next attack. And the first thing that came to my head was a throwing rogue, right? You throw a dagger at someone, and then because you can, if you have the light thing going, like 2 daggers, you can throw 1 hit, throw the second as your bonus action. Because you now have advantage, you get your sneak attack damage. But now, like, having this on a fighter going finesse starts making more sense and stuff. Especially because they even flat out say on the fighter page, dexterity or strength can be your primary stuff. So I'm guessing you probably have to make a choice, but for some things that require a saving throw and stuff, you can pick and choose. I don't know. I'd have to check in the subclasses, things that require saving throws. But yeah, that is really cool. I like that. I really like that a lot. Subclass feature, cool. Yeah, improved action surge. I think this is worded exactly the same or something close. Unconquerable. And then, 3 attacks rather than 2. All right. Yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing. Giving fighters more versatility, especially at these higher levels, right? Because the 13th level area is kind of where it's like, that's where fighters really drop off from what I've heard. I haven't seen it as much. I think it's a bit more of a theory crafty kind of thing. But I've heard tell that's, as you level up more and more, spellcasters become more and more versatile and get more and more options and stuff. So something like this on a fighter, I think really keeps things interesting. And being able to swap it out after a long rest and like test things and we're heading into a boss fight, and just have the fighter kind of almost like they're switching their stance kind of thing. I know it's not instantaneous like that, but that's really cool. That's one of the best features I've seen out of the changes. So let's take a look at this subclass. Champion. Design updates. Here are the main updates on the subclass. Adaptive Victor, a new 3rd level feature giving champion non-combat utility. All right, cool. One of the lower rated fighter features has been replaced by Adaptable Victor and Heroic Warrior. Oh, so they've added 2 different things. Okay. Additional fighting style has moved from 10th level to 6th level. Again, they're moving some stuff earlier, which I'm good with. And again, right, level 6, even like once you throw a fireball into the mix, like martial stuff, that's where it starts to, So I like martial classes getting more stuff, especially if they're improving on the casters and stuff too, because they need this kind of stuff too. Adaptive. All right, so the Adapted Victor is a new one. You study friends and foes alike. Efficient long rest. You can gain proficiency in 1 skill for those available to this class at 1st level. Lasts until your next long rest. So that is an extra skill that can change from day to day. Cool. I can dig that. Improve critical, which I think was there before anyway. Additional fighting style that has moved up. Now, heroic warrior. So remarkable athlete doesn't exist anymore, but they have heroic warrior. Okay, what's heroic warrior? Thrill of battle drives you towards victory. Once per combat, you can give yourself heroic advantage if you start your turn without it. Is that just advantage on an attack? What does that mean? So yeah, it's kind of like a player's way of getting interesting. Okay. I dig it. Once per combat. Fourth edition's creeping back in. I haven't seen a once per combat in 5th ed that I can think of, other than again on potentially on some monsters or something that I can't think of offhand. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not used to seeing once per combat. I guess as long as you're in an initiative is going to be considered in combat. Interesting. Yeah, I think some of the terminology is going to change. Because again, I have seen once per turn versus once per round, I think is going to start to maybe be a little more solidified, because that's something I'm still personally struggling with, the differentiation in 5th ed compared to some other stuff. But yeah, once per combat, I don't know if I've seen that in 5th ed before. I think that sounds to me like 4th edition terminology, because 4th edition had a lot more of like a video gamey kind of descriptor or language, and this feels very video game language to me. Yeah, that's just interesting for that. I like this. Yeah, interesting. And the heroic advantage thing being the new name for inspiration. Yeah. Interesting. Anyway, okay. So I don't think anything else has changed. Yeah, some interesting stuff there. I can dig it. Not. Yeah. Weapon Adept, I think, really opens some interesting doors. Moving stuff early, whether it just be you get feats 2 levels in a row instead of it being a little more spread out, or some of the stuff moving up to earlier levels, almost across the board. I think they're making fighters. They're keeping some uniqueness, which is nice, right? Like this Weapon Adept, I think will really open up some interesting doors, especially with how many of those masteries are like no prerequisites. And I'm just gonna quickly check. Were barbarians able to swap stuff out too? Don't think so. I mean, maybe in one of the subclasses they'll be able to. but they just have general weapon mastery. I don't think they're able to swap things out, which then again makes for, everybody getting, all the martial classes can use this fun new thing we added, but then fighters get more versatility in it, which makes their class more interesting in that sense. So I dig it. I really like that. But that's fighter. So we're going to do other stuff next. So if you're watching this on the live stream, sweet, whether it be on the VOD or not. If not, I will see you in the next video.